How does that look? Does the slide look okay?
It looks good to me, Ryan.
Okay. Just want to make sure we got a decent placeholder up there as we get people joining.
Looks like Nisha is an attendee, not a panelist. I wonder if she used the wrong link. I'm gonna try to send her the right one.
Thank you, Ben.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ryan Anderson, and I want to welcome you to our webinar today focused on the Nebraska Business Innovation Act programs, which are administered by the Nebraska Department of Economic Development, and specifically two innovation consultants, and Ben Kuspa and Nisha Avey, who will be speaking with us today. So again, thank you all for joining us. I'm the Director of Industry Relations at UNL, a role that's focused on connecting the resources of the university with the private sector with a focus on facilitating projects and collaborations that involve our faculty, staff, and students and companies. Also act as a liaison to some of the economic development groups in the region and the state and localities. And when it's not pandemic time, I reside just right over my left shoulder out at Nebraska Innovation Campus. Over the last few years, I've also assumed a role in a new unit at the university system level that's been created. And I'm going to have to turn the webinar over to Sarah Bennett at this point. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Bennett. I am with Nebraska Business Development Center, and I am on the NU Connections team. Ryan and I are colleagues on that together. And today I'm going to be running through a couple of things with you to kick off our session. So first, if you have questions, please go ahead and enter those in the question and answer function. If you've got any technical questions or specific questions outside of questions that are appropriate for the entire group, please send those via chat to the panelists. And then we're going to answer questions primarily at the conclusion of Ben and Anisha's presentation, but may answer questions during the presentation if it's appropriate. So to give you a little background, NU Connections, what it is it's a program that's been developed to connect business and industry with the university. We've got a lot of really great programs across our 4 campuses and looking at ways to create more opportunities for engagement between business and industry and the university system. And one of those great opportunities is through the programs available under the Business Innovation Act that Ben and Anisha are going to talk about. But we've got representatives at all 4 campuses. Ryan is at UNL, and he does a terrific job with that, and he's been helping the rest of us understand how to do this at other campuses. I am the representative on the UNK campus, and Michael Dixon, you'll hear from him a little while later. He's on UNMC, and Deanna Marcelino at UNO. The intent basically is to have kind of a single point of contact with those individuals to work with the businesses and the university representative, create that collaboration and that conversation, but looking at it from not only research opportunities and collaboration with faculty, but student talent, access to laboratories, facilities, and the like, and really enhancing all that the university has to offer from a statewide presence. I will now turn it over to Nisha.
Hello, hi, I'm Nisha AV, and Ben and I run the innovation programs at the Department of Economic Development. So I'll get my screen shared here. Okay, and so what we have today is just we're going to talk about our programs and hopefully answer all of your questions. Of course, our contact information will be at the end. So if you do have further questions or a project that you want to discuss with us, we can you can reach out to us there. So Ben and I will kind of jump back and forth and discuss the programs that we ourselves run. The first one I want to touch on is the Microenterprise Assistance Program. This is actually a program that we grant out to other partner agencies that administer technical assistance to microenterprises throughout the state and microloans as well. This is focused on small businesses, less than 10 employees that are growing, most of them not bankable, and that's why they're needing funding outside of a bank. So this is kind of filling a gap in that funding cycle there. We grant these awards out to CDFIs that can make the loans and also help with technical assistance for the Nebraska small businesses. Our partners right now that are administering these programs are Nebraska Enterprise Fund, Center for Rural Affairs, or REAP, and Northeast Economic Development. Ben?
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Kuspa. I'm primarily responsible for the prototype grant and the academic R&D grant. Nisha will talk about the other programs. She does Microenterprise, Seed, and Sbir, Sttr. So we always lead with the prototype grant, or it's kind of our most popular program. It is a grant for product development where we can match funds that are used towards product development. That's a 2/3 reimbursement rate. So 66% there. It's effectively 66%, but it's actually a 2-to-1 match. So a lot of people ask, what does that look like? We can go up to $150,000, although our median awards for that program due to demand are $50,000. If you receive a $50,000 award, you need to match that with $75,000. It's open to all businesses with 500 employees or less, which is most businesses in Nebraska. But we kind of have a focus on startups. So we do a lot of lot of software development with that program, your traditional tech startup you think of. Probably 60% of our projects that we've funded over the last 10 years have been pure software. The remainder, though, have been a mixture of some sort of hardware, and we do a lot in agriculture. We'll talk about our value-added agriculture match a little bit more in depth, but we reimburse at a higher rate for that. So people making agricultural machinery, we've done quite a few projects there. We've done a lot of things in the sensor realm, Internet of Things, a mixture of hardware, software platforms. One of the companies that resided on Innovation Campus, Quantified Ag, before they exited, was a recipient of our programs, and they were kind of a group that benefited from that early prototype investment. So initial product development is what I would say this is focused on, although we have participated in product development at all stages where people are building something new. It doesn't have to be your first product line. So if you are an incumbent business and you're working on something additional that might, increase employment, provide additional revenue, that would be of interest to us as well. The numbers there, the 12.3, I think that's from last year. We haven't included our numbers from the last fiscal year, but it's probably closer to $13-14 million over about 280 projects since 2011. So quite a few beneficiaries of the program. Matt McCore is a company out of Lincoln that is a kind of a second go around for an entrepreneur there, Abe Uman, and he's developed a new way of doing genetic sequencing. He's developed his own device. I believe we funded them in 2015 or so. Currently, I believe they're over 30 employees and doing quite well. They developed their own tests and devices that they sell out of that facility in North Lincoln. Company Cam is also based out of Lincoln. That's more your traditional tech startup. They kind of were a spinoff of a roofing company. They're a company that provides a software app for contractors to do documentation of work and that sort of thing. It's actually a relatively affordable product, but they're also doing very well and growing quite rapidly. So those are kind of what we're looking for, is to hit that 10% VC number, where maybe we can get 10% success rate and really grow some companies from scratch via this program. Nish, if you want to take over and talk about the next program, which kind of segues from prototype.
So we also administer a seed investment program. This is actually an investment in your company, not a grant. We partner with our friends at Invest Nebraska to administer this program. We cannot, as a state agency, make and hold an investment. So Invest Nebraska is our partner and does that part of it. They also complete due diligence for us on all projects that we are looking at. So again, this is Nebraska-based businesses that are going out to commercialize their product. So this can be used for working capital, whatever it takes for you to get your business really scaled up. At this point, we are past the prototype development stage. This program, it's a 1-to-1 match unless it's a value-added ag. The match for value-added ag is 4-to-1. It's lower because we prioritize those projects. We can match up to $500,000 per company. We tend to like to tranche those investments, make smaller investments so we can participate in multiple funding rounds. So those investments tend to go at either $125,000 or $250,000, depending on what kind of round you're looking at for your business. If you're interested in seed investment, we always we look at the application, but we always have you talk with Invest Nebraska before you apply, and the approvals have to go through our department. So you do want to have a conversation with us as well. This is one of our bigger investments. We're probably at 15 million, I would think, at this point, and that's partly because we get to make those bigger investment sizes. Ops Compass out of Omaha, they've had a lot of success and they continue to grow very rapidly, actually. And hopefully our program is part of that impact.
All right, so academic R&D is probably most topical and what I talk to Ryan about most often, which is a program to provide funding to a business that is doing applied research and development in conjunction with the Nebraska College or University. UNL gets the lion's share of that. That's where we get the most applications. We've done projects with UNL, UNMC, and Creighton as well. But I think that's the extent. We are permitted to work with any Nebraska college or university. So that can be a for-profit college, that can be a state college, that could be a community college. Obviously, we prefer to work with some other entities as well, but right now we're seeing the most demand from UNL. Probably 85 to 90% of the projects that we see are there. It is a tranche program. So it's up to $100,000 for a phase 1 project from us, and up to $400,000 for a phase 2 project from DED. So all in, if you have $1 million project, the business could get $500,000 of that refunded or reimbursed by DED. It is a 1-to-1 match, unlike Prototype and other programs, or every program has their own match rate, which is confusing, but unfortunately this one is set at 1-to-1. It is 4-to-1 for value-added agriculture. So those people in the animal science department, those people who are in the horticulture or whatever it might be, they tend to be able to reimburse 80% of those costs, which is nice for the businesses that are working with the college. And we've done, I want to say we did 400,000 last year. So we're about 10.6 million. And we have 93 project phases. Not every project merits a phase 2. Quite a few don't. A lot of companies are looking for a single project and a singular project that will only take 12 to 24 months. But they're more than welcome to apply for a phase 2 if they do that. We've worked a lot with New Tech Food Science, which is actually located on Nebraska Innovation Campus. They have a small office there, and they have an office in Omaha. They do food, say natural food. The project we do is natural food preservatives, but they also provide some food additives and things that are more healthy or have a healthy focus. Virtual Incision, of course, is a spin-off of the University of Nebraska, or is a licensed product from the University of Nebraska. It's developed internally. They license that product. They also have a presence on Innovation Campus. I believe they're still there. And they are doing their final validation testing for a surgical robot. So they're trying to get that approved by the FDA. I believe that's in the final phases there, which is what we assisted with through this program. I will mention there's 2 ways to qualify for this. The business, and it's a little bit confusing because it's a 3-party contract. Essentially, DED has a contract with a private business that is Nebraska based. That business then either has a contract or is working with a Nebraska college or university, either under a sponsored research agreement or they're doing a work for hire agreement with some sort of institution. We've done projects with the Food Processing Center. We've done projects with NARI that they don't typically operate under the Office of Sponsored Programs. They typically do more work for hire agreement where they have a contract rate, and that is perfectly fine. We're willing to be flexible and look at different situations where it might not be under a sponsored research agreement. We're willing to look at projects where the intellectual property is retained by the business or the intellectual property is licensed by the business from New Tech. So there's a lot of situations where there's a lot of moving parts here, and you can qualify for the program also by licensing something from the university as well. So there's a tech transfer aspect of this. It's stronger if I should say, you take that license agreement and then you continue to work on that and do some applied research or development, and that would be what we'd be funding. But that doesn't have to be done internally at the university in that case. It can be done externally as well. And when you make an application, if the business owner wishes to be reimbursed for some aspects of the project that are not under the umbrella of the university, we have two application budgets. One is for the funds that will flow through to the university, and one is for things that might occur internally. That might be skilled labor, that might be materials as a common request. So maybe they're providing materials to the university for a specific validation test. So anything where you're working with a Nebraska-based business, I would say you might want to, if you're a professor listening to this, you might want to educate them about this program and have them reach out to us and see if it fits the right mold of what we're trying to accomplish with this. Also, Ryan, I'm just going to tell everybody that Ryan is the person to talk to at UNL. Sarah and Michael are the people at UNK and UNMC. So everybody on the call today is incredibly helpful in setting these projects up and trying to get things moving. And it definitely helps that we can fund a lot of these projects. I think that some of them wouldn't happen without the funding available. Hold questions till the end, or you're welcome to put them in the chat as we go, or the Q&A, sorry, and we'll try to address those at the end. Right now, Nisha, I think, is going to cover SBIR.
Yes, so another program that would be popular with hopefully some of you faculty is the federal SBIR, Sttr programs. We at the state level can match awards made by the federal government. It is a 3-phase program, so we have a phase 0 planning grant that is available. If you are a first-time proposal preparer, you may require some assistance in preparing that proposal. So we can provide up to $5,000, no match required, to hire a grant writer or technical reviewer or somebody to assist with the preparation of your proposal. We typically don't pay for in-house salaries to write the proposal. This is usually allocated for folks that don't have somebody that can write Sbirs on their staff. If you are awarded a phase 1 or phase 2, we can match those awards at 65% up to $100,000 per phase, as long as you're completing at least 51% of the work in the state and that you are a Nebraska-based business. So, just over half of the work in the state, and no other matches required, just your federal award. This is one of the few programs that has in statute timing requirements around the awards. So phase 0 has to be applied for at least 30 days before the federal closing date, and phase 1s and 2s must be applied within 45 days of your federal notice of award. I always tell folks, usually you're reaching out to me at some point before you've been notified of award. Just let me know as soon as you've received that notification of that award, and we'll get you going on the application process so we don't miss any deadlines and we don't have any silly reasons not to award it. And the other timing requirement around this program is that we can only match one award every 2 years, but we can follow the 3 phases. So if we give you a phase 0 and you win that phase 1 and then you win that phase 2 within a 2-year period, we can follow all 3 phases, but we can't match a phase 1 this year and then a different phase 1 next year. We do have to wait 2 years before we can match again. Nebraska's historically been an underserved state for SBIRs. We have in the past few years seen a lot of growth with SBIRs in the state. Hopefully that has a little something to do with us, and there are matching for you folks so you can have, I think there's a little bit boost in acceptance when they know you're going to get some assistance at that state level, because the federal award, by the time you've applied for it and you realize what you really need, it's never going to cover everything you actually need to complete that project. So we help cover that gap, whether that's in if you need additional equipment, additional staff time. Sometimes, especially with ag projects, the award kicks in September, but clearly you need growing season covered, so we can help cover that June to September time period. So this is one of our lower amounts, total amounts that we've awarded, but we do have some really great companies that are really utilizing the federal programs and getting those matches from us and growing. Drone Amplified, they're selling their fire management systems all over the world at this point and has benefited from our program. And we have a lot of really big success stories in the Sbir world. And again, if you have questions on that one, just reach out to me. I do administer those programs.
All right, couple more slides here. Sorry, Ryan, did you?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. So a couple more things. So everybody asks, what's the application process? We try to make it as painless as possible. We have a new application portal, which Nisha and I can assist people with if they have any questions about it. That link right there is to our website. It's a shortcut to the Business Innovation Act program. If you select a program, there'll be a link at the bottom of that page to the actual application portal for that program. They're not posted right now because we're not taking applications. We operate on a fiscal year, and essentially we take applications until the money runs out. So this year, we're likely going to start taking applications before July 1st for funding on July 1st, and that will probably be early June. So about a month and a half. And we're going to continue taking those applications until all the funds are awarded. This year, the exciting news is that we just found out that instead of and this is a shared pool of funds. So every year we typically have between $6 and $7 million to award to micro, prototype, academic R&D, seed, and SBIR. This upcoming year, we're actually getting a major increase. So it's going to be 14 million for the next year. And then the following year, it should be 15 million. That might be a one-time increase. Hopefully it's going to be ongoing, at least at the $10 to $11 million level. We're also increasing some staff. So there's going to be some new faces in our office that you might be working with on your application if you're interested. We review projects. Once you submit it, usually you sit down with a consultant. So that would be Nisha or myself. Right now, there might be a couple new people. And then they take that to our review committee, which is an internal group of 3 people that decide on whether or not to fund a project. And they're looking at it from an economic development perspective, feasibility perspective. There's different priorities for different projects. And if you want to, or different programs, if you want to discuss that, it'd probably be best to reach out to one of us based on the program you're interested in. If it's reviewed and it's approved, then you could commence work as soon as you hear from us. So that can be anywhere after you submit, as soon as 1 to 5 weeks. Usually 5 weeks is probably the longest you'd have to wait to hear back from us, which is, I think, is pretty good compared to some of the federal grant programs that people may be used to that take up to 6 months. So we move fast and try to get you an answer relatively soon. You can commence work. We do the admin work in the back end and get you set up with a contract and set up for payment. But only those project costs that are incurred after the date of award are eligible for most programs. So payments are made via direct deposit. That's to the business that is the applicant. And we do not, for most of our programs, so my programs, I say, prototype and academic R&D, you need to submit a drawdown request with an invoice and a proof of payment or whatever scope of work that might be. If you're doing an academic R&D project, UNL, the Office of Sponsored Programs, would build a business. You get that invoice, the business would pay it, then they'd submit that evidence to us and we'd reimburse them for our share of that. The only program that accepts in-kind matches is SBIR's Sttr, where essentially your match is the federal award. With prototype, academic R&D, those programs you have to, we will reimburse our share, but we don't accept we'll pay for this, you pay for that sort of situation. So it does need to be, it's strictly a percentage of what was incurred. And because we work on a reimbursement basis, there's we haven't had any issues in the past with any sort of audits. So we're going to probably continue doing that. Like I said, reimbursements are a share. We'll talk on the next slide a little bit about value-added agriculture, but for prototype, it's 2/3. Academic R&D, it's 50%, and SBIR, it's 65% up to the award level. So all of those are up to the award levels. And seed, you have to have a co-investor. Value-added ag across the board is 80,000 or 80%. My apologies. So there's that. The guidelines will provide the contract timelines. Typically, the only program I'm aware of that has a contract timeline is prototype, where we can only do a project that lasts up to 24 months. We have a strict cutoff at 24 months in statute for that. Academic R&D does not have that restriction, but we do have to do a phase 1 to phase 2 within a 4-year window. If you're beyond that, we'd have to restart the project and recommence with via phase 1. I'm not sure that any restrictions are in SBIR. I don't believe they have restrictions on timing other than that one project every 2 years. So, and there are some retention and clawback requirements in the program contracts. For the most part, that is, you need to maintain a presence. Whatever business is receiving the funds needs to maintain a presence within the state for a minimum of 3 years. For most projects, they need to make good faith effort to commercialize the product, and that is typically stipulated in a reporting process, which is at the end of the project. We don't have a lot of interim reporting requirements. Every 2 years, though, we do ask for some basic business information to do some assessment that we get assistance with. We contract with the Bureau of Business Research at UNL to do an economic impact study. So if you want to read the economic impact study, it's on our website. You can see kind of what our intent of the programs are and what the history of it is. We update that every 2 years. So yeah, we have a notification list. I will also throw that out there. If you are interested in getting on that notification list when the applications go live, we are going to be emailing everybody again early June. It is a first come, first reviewed situation. So in the last 2 years, we had to stop taking applications at the midpoint of the year, and then we built up a wait list, and we emailed people, and we tried to honor their gumption and how fast they applied by reviewing them first, and we review them in batches. So whoever applies first is going to get reviewed first. If you have a situation where you're working on a project or you're interested in a program that might have a need to commence before the applications are open, reach out to me. If you're just interested in being notified when applications open, send an email to Nisha or myself, and we will add you to that list with your email contact information. All right, that's it from me. Nisha's got another slide here.
Yeah, and I should say this is a competitive process. We review applications and projects for feasibility, and we probably fund, I don't know, maybe 40% of applications at this time. We may be able to go higher with additional funding, but it still is competitive, and we're still only funding those projects which seem feasible, have some marketability and some value added components to them. And I did see a question on the match. The match for all of our programs simply needs to be a non-state source. So that can be personal, founder investment, families, friends, schools, federal awards. We've matched some other grants like the Lincoln grants that they give out at the chamber. As long as it's a non-state funding source, we can use that as match. So as far as the value-added agriculture component, we do have a focus in the state, of course, on agriculture. So there's a lower match. It's a 4-to-1 match. So for every dollar that you put in, we can put in 4. So that gets your reimbursement up quite a bit higher. We determine you can request value-added agriculture component for your project, but we do make those final determinations. to determine which projects actually are adding efficiency and profitability for farming and ranching in the state. So we've done a lot of precision ag. There have been some food products that we've participated in, a lot of animal health and animal food products as well. And so just, focusing on adding value to that agricultural component is where we're looking for that lower match amount. They have to fall within one of our already determined programs. It's just a lower match. It still has to fit into one of our other projects.
Yeah, to just follow on there, Nisha is correct. So you would apply for the regular program and essentially check a box saying I want to be considered for the value added ag, and then that would go to our committee. And my go-to example of that is always like a pickup truck versus a combine. People will always say, well, my product can be used by farmers or ranchers or be something like, yes, a pickup truck could be used on a farm and it's definitely a useful tool, but it is not solely useful for agriculture, whereas a combine in most cases would be. So that's kind of the line we have to straddle, and that's something we leave up to our committee to answer that. We were asked a while back, we've given this talk a few times, to add some best practices for the application process. And these are mostly related to prototype, but I think it's universal, which is when you're filling out these applications, we get a lot of jargon, especially with academic R&D projects that sometimes need to be explained. So you're talking to a layperson, a lay audience that is looking at this from a perspective of how is this going to go to market. And some of especially the R&D projects can be technical, or the prototype projects can be in a very niche industry. So try to interpret it through the lens of our department and acknowledge the goal of the program, which is return on investment. We're looking for an increase in employment, an increase in revenue, potential for wealth creation, potential for follow-on investment, and explain your jargons and your acronyms as you go. So you'd be surprised how many people submit a business plan but doesn't actually write things out. I think that the other thing is some people feel that they might be more competitive if they obfuscate a little bit. That's not the case. Try to be clear about what your intentions are, what the limitations are there. If there's any deficiencies, that's something to bring up, because that's something that we've seen enough projects that we're going to hone in on. So if there's a chance that a project will not be successful, that's fine. But just try to get ahead of that in the application. That might be from a market perspective for a prototype grant project where you're looking at competition. That might be just a we don't know situation with R&D, where you're working with a university researcher and they're not 100% sure it worked. It's research. I mean, that's so some things don't pan out. These are high risk, high reward programs, and I would be honest about that. Especially for prototype though, validate your assumptions. There's a lot of talk about the lean methodology, the agile methodology of development. So work with customers, not as important for R&D projects necessarily, depending on what the project is. If you're focusing on commercialization, then yes, you should get some customer validation. But more importantly for prototypes. So if you're applying for prototype, we want to see that there's some sort of interest from the market you're trying to tap into. If you build out a budget especially for prototype, we want some bids. If you're doing R&D or SBIR, then you should give us some information about what you're going to purchase. If you're working with the university, definitely get a draft of a sponsored research agreement or the scope of work and the cost therein. That's something that's required in the application process. Lastly, these are, again, mostly prototype, but operating in a vacuum as a solo entrepreneur is really hard. So build a team if you can, whether that be advisors or co-founders in that sense. Try to acknowledge your own deficiencies when you're looking at that, and try to hire people or team up with people that can balance each other out. It's always easier to fund a team rather than an individual. Not that we haven't done it, but it definitely is a stronger application if there's a team there. And going back to the jargon, acronyms have another set of eyes to review your business plan. I always tell people, have your spouse or your mom or your dad or somebody who is not in your industry read your business plan and see if it makes sense to them. And, you know, if there's parts that don't make sense to them, it might not make sense to us. So something to think about. There are professional resources, NBDC. Sarah is part of NBDC through in the Greater Nebraska area. We refer people to NBDC at Omaha to do a lot of Sbir activity as well. Although Sarah does some of that as well. University of Nebraska has in addition to operating the seed investment program, they also provide technical assistance as part of their contract. So if you have questions, especially about the financing side and how to raise money, please go talk to Ben Williamson at University of Nebraska. Also, Matt Foley is operating the combine, and I believe they're handling the biotech connector right now as well. So some of the institutions on Innovation Campus are being run by them. The combine is a agricultural ag tech incubator, and they have a healthy number of companies that have been funded by us. So that's an opportunity to get some assistance there through Matt Foley. And lastly, listen to feedback. So I think everything that was said to this point in time lends itself to that. But if we tell you that you're missing something in the application process, before we take that to the committee, please address it. We usually give people a chance to put their best foot forward and to tweak their application if necessary, so that we can try to, you know, get you the best possible chance of being funded. So please don't ignore feedback from us and expect a positive outcome. So like I said, every application usually gets a set of eyes on it before it goes to our committee. We try to bring up any glaring oversights at that point in time. We don't write applications for you, but we will try to give you a chance to revise if you think there's something that's missing or needs to be addressed. So that's it for me.
Excuse me. And so just our contact info here, please take a picture, whatever. If you need us, you can find us on our webpage as well. I think our webpage is listed on every single slide except this one, apparently. But we're happy to help you. We want you to be successful. Like, your success is our success. And we're looking at the state of Nebraska as bottom line. So if a Nebraska business can have success, then the whole state does. So that's where we're here to help you. And I think everybody, Ryan and Sarah and everybody on this call would be happy to help lead you in the right direction as you have questions. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Ben and Nisha. We really appreciate it. And as was just mentioned, the bottom line is really important. And you can look at the BIA impact report that was mentioned. And if I'm not mistaken, for every dollar that's been invested, there's been a $6 economic return on those dollars. So these are really high impact programs. And I have to tell you, for the faculty audience here, and I suppose the staff as well, completely clear your mind of a federal application process. This is so much simpler. It is so much quicker. It is so much more efficient. And Ben and Nisha are really accessible for questions up front so that you can submit the best proposal possible, right up front. And so thanks again for your presentation. So along those lines, I'm going to turn it over to our colleague, Michael Dixon, who is the president of UNIMED up at UNMC, and he is also the industry liaison officer for new connections for the campus. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Nisha and Ben. That was really a good description of the Business Innovation Act, and I'm really excited that we're able to. Thanks for Ryan and Suzanne and Sarah for helping to put on this webinar for everyone, because I think it's a program that has some amazing benefits for university researchers and for the university groups. And the ability, the ease of access is really one that I think is just, it can't be stressed enough, because it's so difficult to get an SBIR award or an R01 or any of the programmatic grants through the NIH. Yet, when we're looking at the programs through the Business Innovation Act, they're really some of the easiest to really get access to, and they're some of the most impactful. When we're looking at any projects here, and for those of you who don't know, UNIMED is very similar to New Tech. We're here for technology commercialization. We want to make sure that any new ideas that occur at the university get developed into products that can have an impact on our economy. And we want to see companies grow out of research. And so when we look at programs like this, it's really the first dollars in to help for that development. We understand that the grants create the discovery, but the development of that into a product really is a long row, and it takes a lot of money to get there. And we realize that this money doesn't cover everything, but getting that first 50,000, 100,000 in helps attract other investors and other people and actually other grants. So here, what we've really seen is with the academic R&D, I think that's a great program, not only for the startups, but also for researchers that want to do work with companies. So we have researchers that work with Sttr or that want to work with Lycor, or really any sort of Nebraska-based company that can apply and get awards through this. So while it's great for startups, and if you have a startup that's got some funding and wants to do research in the lab, which is quite often, it also works for the companies that want to do work with just Nebraska companies with the university. When we're working with startups and when we've got a really great idea and it's ready to move into a startup, that prototype money is I think some of the best to get started with. And that's, as Ben described earlier, the ability to identify a product and really describe it and to raise a little bit of money outside that 4 F's: friends, family, founders, fools. And match that money with some of the state money just gives you so much more runway than you'd have otherwise. And what we found is it really does help attract investors when they say the state is willing to invest and put some money in. It gives it a little bit more of that legitimacy and helps you bridge to the next stop. The SBIR Sttr, as I think was mentioned, we didn't see a lot of SBIRs in the past decade. I think we've been light. Nebraska has always been identified as a state that doesn't have enough. And I think what we found is when we have been able to establish these programs and start to get some of that matching dollars, it gives more incentive for that to occur. I think we're seeing as many as we've ever seen, probably 2 to 3 times as many SBIR Sttr applications now. And that's just bringing, diversifying our research portfolio as well as bringing more money into the state as we start to get success on that. And I think a lot of it goes back to the state programs and giving some resources, that phase 0 money where we can just get started and start to get reviews. We can also look to layer on, if you're in life sciences, getting you in touch with the Sharp Hub where they have some resources to help write and develop the SBIRs with you. And then I full disclosure, I served on the Invest Nebraska board for a lot of years, and I've really championed as much as I can this idea that there's a nonprofit investment arm. Nebraska historically hasn't had as many investment entities, and really not looking at the A, B rounds, but looking at that seed round, that first dollars into the company, and having a group like Invest Nebraska that is willing to come in and be, co-investing with that first investor, the angel round, or just getting those first dollars in, has made a really, really big impact. Nebraska is now, I think when the Talented Innovation Act was approved in 2011, we were 51st. I think the District of Columbia was ahead of us in addition to every other state in the union. And now we're in the mid-30s. We've been up in the mid-20s as far as the number of deals and dollars in the state. And while we don't anticipate becoming Boston next week or next year, we're doing really, really well. We're beating other states in the Midwest. We're seeing more investments come in. We're bringing literally $50 to $100 million. A lot of it's coming from outside the state investing in our companies, and that's making an impact. And so as faculty primarily on this webinar, be thinking of these opportunities, talk to New Tech, talk to UNIMED. And if there are startup opportunities, we have resources to help you put together companies and start to develop to a point where you can start to qualify for the prototype funds or that academic R&D, get the first dollars in, and then you're off to the races and going. Hopefully we'd like to see Nebraska really climb that ladder and be a place where we see more companies build and grow and hopefully give more opportunities for our students to join those companies and to continue to grow our economy. So I know Ryan and his team work hard, Brad and the New Tech team are always working hard at this, and we are too. So feel free to reach out to any one of us and let us know, if you have interest in these programs and how we can help you get access to them or get connections to Ben and Nisha so that you can develop your discoveries, your ideas into products that can have an impact.
Great. Thanks, Michael. We really appreciate your perspective and contributions and all the good stuff that you and your colleagues do up at UNIMED. Thank you very much for always being a great partner. So with that, I think we'll turn it over to Sarah Bennett, who will coordinate the question and answer portion that will wrap up our webinar.
Before we get into the question and answer portion, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Small Business Innovation Research too, and NBDC, and then we'll dive right into the questions too. So give me a second here, and I will share my screen with all of you. So the Small Business Innovation Research Program that Nisha talked about. So our role at Nebraska Business Development Center is helping folks with proposal review. So we're not writing it for you. That's where the $5,000 for the planning from DED is very helpful for those grant writers. We help you make sure you've got everything that you're going to need to do that review, and then as well as registrations and such for this. So the Small Business Innovation Research Program is targeted at small businesses. So it could be a spin out of, as you are a faculty, the one requirement to be aware of is that the PI must be employed 51% in the company. So sometimes we see faculty members participate in SBIRs or STTRs, and that's a more emphasis on a university partner there. And maybe they're in a contractual role or things like that, and a business is applying. I've seen that with a faculty member at UNK who's on an out-of-state SBIR and STTR, and those programs in particular, that funding would have gone to that business that's out of state. So the matching monies for anything through DED has to be for a business that's within the state of Nebraska, even if you as a faculty member are within the state. So some things to think about there. And then we do monthly workshops on the programs. You kind of know what to expect, coincide with the various federal agency timelines. All of the events are at our website there on your screen. So upcoming areas we're focusing on, we're honing in on a couple of federal agencies. There's generally 12 to 13 per year federal agencies that participate in the SBIR and STTR programs. So the Department of Defense does a lot of contractual work, and so we are doing some programming around that. So under the Department of Defense are a lot of various agencies. So Navy, for example, is one of them. So they've got some ongoing releases coming up. So right now they're in pre-release phase, and so on the website for this, and we can direct you to some of it if you have interest at the defense level, is showing opportunities that are going to open up on May 19th and close on June 18th. So a very short time window. Everything that's tied to this cohort for defense innovation can be found on our website, nbdc.unomaha.edu, and then navigating to our innovation and technology tab, and then down to defense innovation. And we've got a lot of events that are just helping you prepare those proposals and walk through the various steps. And then we will launch a program for science, agriculture, and energy technologies beginning in June. Very excited for that. So that's going to focus on USDA opportunities, National Science Foundation, and Department of Energies, because these three federal SBIR programs have deadlines all about October. So we're going to do a lot of programming June through September to help folks through that process. And then medical innovation, we just wrapped that up. We see a lot of that in partnership with UNMC faculty, specifically through the National Institutes of Health. And so targeting some of those things and coordinating with external providers like Michael mentioned with SharpHub. And so really keying in on those key areas with our SBIR awards and the applications for medical innovation through NIH, through ag or energy innovations, through USDA and DOE. And then also with kind of a general broad catch-all with National Science Foundation. Okay, now we're going to dive into the question and answer portion. There was a question about the F&A rate that Ryan did answer. And then I believe, Nisha, you did answer the one on the matching requirement. But if you guys just wanted to maybe touch on those two briefly again, just in case audience members might have missed those.
Sure, I'll take the first one on F&A. And this principally applies to the academic R&D program. But for the cash that comes from the company to the university, so the matching component is assessed the appropriate federally negotiated rate. And so those are all going to be variable from campus to campus. And then there could also be some variability based upon, is it specifically categorized as sponsored research, or is it potentially recognized as a other activity in federal categorization, or it could even be in teaching and instruction in some very rare instances. But you can consult with your Office of Sponsored Programs or ORCA up at UNO. If they have any questions, just because of the number of times that the UNL team has worked on these, they can certainly approach me and I can get them in touch with the right folks over in pre-award. We do have a nice process through the new grant system that's been established to be able to handle these, and the routings aren't terribly painful. So we're glad to help.
I can talk a little bit about the prototype grant. I believe the question was, where does the funding have to come from? And the answer is, it just needs to be non-state funds. So in the rare, and there really are not a lot, the nice thing is there's not a lot of other opportunities to get state funds, if you consider that a plus. But I know the Nebraska Forest Service has had questions about in the past, or the Department of Ag sometimes has some grant programs. It really depends on where that's coming from. So if it's state general funds, then we can't match it. If it is some sort of set aside, then maybe, like if it's a revenue stream that is based on transactions, a tax that way, we'd have to look at it. If it's federal funds, like if you get a grant from a federal funds, then you can use that as well. So, but the vast majority, I'm going to say 95% of the projects that we fund through Prototype are funded privately, and they, in probably order, are the 3 F's that Michael talked about: founders, family, friends, and fools, or I guess 4 F's in that case. So angel investment, sometimes people get loans if you're bankable and you want to, then that's fine as well. And angel investment, if you get we do ask if you're applying for Prototype, you provide evidence of matching funds, either in the form of a personal bank statement, a business bank statement, a letter of intent from a individual investor that's trustworthy, or a bank, some sort of loan documentation. We want these projects to hit the ground running. So we ask for that the funds are lined up for at the time of application. As soon as we approve it, you can commence work, and that would be ready to go. So I think that answers the matching requirement. We just can't match state funds in any capacity for that program.
And those are the only questions I'm seeing at this time. So I'll go ahead, Ryan, and turn it to you to do any closing statements.
All right, thank you. And I do have actually a closing question, and Ben and Nisha, pardon me if you did cover this. I know that Ben said that the proposals are reviewed in tranches or in small batches. What's the approximate turnaround time from formal submission of a proposal to either follow-up or decision to the applicant?
Well, Brian, I'll take that one. We do try to review application cycles every other week. So, the fastest probably would be 2 weeks, and the longest might be up to 5 weeks. We do anticipate quite a bit of applications since we've been without funding for 6 months at the start. So you may have to wait a month to begin, but we also will open up applications probably a month before we can fund them anyway. So 2 to 4 weeks is typical.
Right, that's really quite efficient, particularly when you compare it to federal agencies in general.
We do have a question about the recording. So yes, the session has been recorded, and the slide deck along with the recording will be sent out to registrants once all this is wrapped up.
And we have somebody in the chat, Jaqual, who's indicated an award and utilization of the funds 2 years ago with an STTR and planning to submit a phase 2. And we're really excited, as as Michael had indicated, we're really seeing a great uptick in proposals, and really the sophistication and applicability of the proposals has really elevated. And it's a testament to the orientation I think that a lot of faculty have taken to doing more applied work like this and founding their own companies. And then likewise, the maturity of the ecosystem and assistance that's available through NBDC, Invest Nebraska, DED, and some of the other partners. But the question in the chat asks if the award was made 2 years ago, if there was still applicable for matching funds or whether they had missed their window.
Yeah, so with SBIR, that's the one with the timeline requirements that we have to match. We have to be notified at least within 45 days of the federal notice of award. But it looks like maybe a phase 2 is coming. So that would be something we can talk about matching. So once you hear back from that federal agency, just let me know right away and we'll get your application going.
Well, I think we have reached some level of acquiescence. And so I'll take that as a cue for some closing remarks. And first, I want to thank all of the attendees very much. We appreciate all your work in this domain, and we're more than happy to help. And then I just want to thank Nisha and Ben from the Department of Economic Development, and wish you a lot of luck with this coming fiscal year and all the great proposals that you're going to see. We look forward to working with you a great deal. And then to my dear colleagues, Michael and Sarah and Suzanne, for both your remarks, and for Suzanne for orchestration of the webinar today. So to everyone, thank you very much. And I think we're all right here in the Central and maybe Mountain time zone. So I hope everybody can go outside and enjoy a few hours of beautiful spring weather. So take care, be well, and we will follow up with accessibility to the recording and the slides. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks.